Part 26. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 251. Now look at that Hetaiyu, drawing a bow and shooting arrows. She is indeed a clan that has been passed down for countless years. Its meaning and spirit are top-notch. In the eyes of everyone, she is almost integrated with the sky and the earth. People and bows and arrows are almost integrated into one body. All kinds of magic tricks surround the bow and arrow and blend into the cloud-chasing arrows, increasing the lethality of the cloud-chasing arrows. Obviously, before Wu Yu rushed to Hetaiyu would shoot an arrow. It is said that the last thing you can do when fighting the Tianyi tribe is to keep them too far away from you. Ordinary cultivators are very balanced. Sword cultivators can be said to be the kings of close combat, while the Tianyi tribe is the overlord of long-distance combat. Therefore, the Tianyi clan is very eager to have a genius who can balance both close combat and long-distance combat. Therefore, Hetaiyu can practice swordsmanship. In this way, even if he is approached, he still has excellent immortal fighting ability. The outcome is determined. Many onlookers said firmly. At the critical moment, the lightning flashes. Hetaiyu smiled coldly and said the word death. Now his cloud-chasing bow and arrow have accumulated the ultimate power. Many Taoist techniques are condensed into the cloud-chasing arrow. Once it is shot, it will have various additional effects. At that moment, she fired the arrow. The Tianyi clan's archery skills are the most powerful in the Divine Continent, and they are astonishing in this long history. I don't know how many people came here today to appreciate the pinnacle of Shenzhou's achievements, or art. Call. The speed of chasing cloud arrow, an arrow that leaves the string, instantly increased to 10 times that of Wu Yu. At that moment, Wu Yu felt cold from head to toe. At that moment, his gaze transformed like fire. Under the immortal ape transformation, his strength increased sharply. Wu Yu had been prepared for this moment. Violence. A beast roar shook the earth and the earth. At that moment, even his thick arms almost grew in size, his muscles bulged, and his golden tendons protruded. The change of strength, the change of flesh and blood, such changes are truly infinite in power. At that moment, Wu Yu seemed to have transformed into a giant beast. Of course, this was just a moment. After the violent technique was completed, it was the time when the cloud-chasing arrow left its string. Now his thick arms were holding the yin-yang sword in both hands. With a move of the sword, the void shook. Heaven, yang, earth, yin, and void swordsmanship, there are pure yang sword, Xuanhuan sword, and even heaven and earth void sword. The so-called void refers to the coincidence of yin and yang. Now that yin and yang are converging, under the coordination of the elixir and magic formula, wonderful and terrifying changes are born. When Wu Yu waved this sword, the void of heaven and earth and the surrounding space were shaken. Twisted and condensed, outside the yin-yang Dao sword, the void actually condensed into a sword. A sword formed by twisting the void due to Taoist magic. The void god-killing sword. This sword is the essence of this swordsmanship worth more than 400 merits, and is where its power is truly demonstrated. Coupled with the violent technique, the space is distorted, and the space sword formed is almost twice as large as usual. The change in violent techniques can be called a miracle. Wu Yu couldn't help but look forward to it. There were a total of 72 changes, and the others were certainly not weak. If one day he could learn all these 72 changes, he would be able to go to heaven or go to hell. There are still 70 species left, how magical will it be? He felt that this earth evil transformation technique was probably even more heaven-defying than the Vajra indestructible body and the great celestial immortal technique. At this moment, time seemed to slow down. Wu Yu was in this technique. He seemed to be able to control the sword-shaped space in front of him. When the void god-killing sword was first used, the cloud-chasing arrow carried terrifying power. Entered this space. Slow. Taoism is mysterious. Since you can control the void, you can naturally slow down the cloud-chasing arrow. The end of the cloud-chasing arrow is wrapped with a thread, which comes from Hiteiyu. By manipulating this thread, she can also change the direction of the cloud-chasing arrow. This is what makes her immortal root special. But unfortunately, when she enters this land, after the sword-shaped space, Hiteiyu was horrified to find that not only was Chiun arrow's speed slower, but it was also beyond her control. The next moment was beyond her control. Broken, Wu Yu waved the void god-killing sword and exploded, slashing wildly. The tip of the yin-yang Dao sword happened to hit the tip of the cloud-chasing arrow. The speed of the cloud-chasing arrow slowed down, and its power naturally weakened a lot when Wu Yu drew it. He made a roar that shook the world. Everyone was horrified to find that the cloud-chasing arrow was actually flung away. The next moment, Wu Yu stabbed, and the entire sword-shaped space rushed towards the Hiteiyu. It came in an instant. The moment Hiteiyu retracted the cloud-chasing arrow, the void god-killing sword hit him. That was the entire space, rushing towards it. The void god-killing sword disrupts the void, uses the sword to control the space of the universe, and pulls out the sword intention in the space. The speed of controlling space with space is naturally extremely fast. Not long after, everyone saw a tremor in the void, and then Hiteiyu screamed in pain and flew out. Wu Yu's void god-killing sword was based on the immortal ape transformation and violent techniques. Although this Taoist technique was almost penetrated when he was flying and chasing cloud arrows, it at least maintained a certain degree of lethality, allowing Hiteiyu to bear tear. Although Hiteiyu was surrounded by flames, he still suffered a major impact and was seriously injured for a while. I'm afraid it will take some time to recover. Wu Yu put away the yin-yang Dao sword and transformed into a human form. The whole process was clean, violent, and direct, without any sloppiness. Hiteiyu, immortal Zhaoxian, also smiled easily. This sudden change made his face pale and furious. He quickly caught Hiteiyu. Now Hiteiyu's body was covered with sword marks. If Wu Yu hadn't taken it in the end, if she used her hand, she would probably die immediately. Most of the cultivators present could see this clearly. When Zhao Xianxian held Hiteiyu, his eyes became even more bloodshot, blood filled his body, and an astonishing murderous intent burst out, sweeping across the world. The hundreds of thousands of people present were actually more amazed at Wu Yu's methods. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Void God-killing sword, strong and direct. After a brief moment of shock, everyone looked at Wu Yu, Zhao Xianxian, Hiteiyu and the other three, and a commotion broke out for a while. Everyone was talking. Everyone, look carefully, what happened? How did Wu Yu break Hiteiyu's chasing cloud bow and arrow? It is said that many yellow sword level disciples could not block Hiteiyu's arrow. I heard from the people over there that Wu Yu seemed to have mastered the essence of the Tianyang Dian Void Sword art. He mastered a sword called the Void God-killing sword, which was his move to defeat Hiteiyu. However, given the difference in their Dan Yuan, even if Wu Yu's swordsmanship attainments were higher, he would not be able to defeat Hiteiyu. There was a full twofold gap, and the nature of the golden elixir was similar. This is not in line with common sense. I also saw it. I don't know what kind of magic Wu Yu used. It seems that the strength of his physical body suddenly increased a lot in an instant. The mystery of the violent technique is so far away that few people can see it clearly. Generally speaking, the immobilization technique is more magical than the violent technique. Of course, the price is soreness and numbness of the arm muscles, and even some loss of consciousness, which is difficult to use a second time in a short period of time. Obviously, the Galaxy Sword Saint still hopes that he will continue the next battle to compete with Zhao Xianxian. From the perspective of the Galaxy Sword Saint, he doesn't think highly of Zhao Xianxian. Obviously, he needs me to be far superior to Zhao Xianxian before he can be satisfied with me. Not only does Wu Yu need to defeat Zhao Xianxian, but he also needs to surpass him by a lot. This is actually very difficult. The first and second place on the 10,000 Swords Immortals list is not a lie. Wu Yu almost used all his strength to defeat He Taiwei, and then he faced Zhao Xianxian. Moreover, Zhao Xianxian inherited the name of Heart-Piercing Sword Immortal, which is considered the first genius in the ordinary sword domain. Wu Yu really didn't expect that he would be sent to such a position by the 10,000 Swords Immortals list to challenge such an existence just after he came to Shushan for more than a year. Judging from the ferocious murderous intent of Zhao Xianxian at this moment, he not only wants to defeat himself, but also wants to kill himself. This young man was full of murderous intent. Wu Yu had seen a righteous cultivator with the ultimate murderous aura. He was almost the same as the ghost cultivators in the East China Sea. It was very likely that Zhao Xianxian had killed many people. He was a character who killed people without hesitation. No wonder the Galaxy Sword Saint thought he had a problem with his character. Seeing that Zhao Xianxian handed He Taiyao over to others to take care of her and let her recuperate, and then came towards him with murderous aura, Wu Yu suddenly remembered something. The reason why the Galaxy Sword Saint is in his current position has a lot to do with the inheritance of the Star Domain Sword Emperor. The Star Domain Sword Emperor was an existence that almost became an immortal in ancient times. This Zhao Xianxian was able to spread his fame because he inherited the Heart-Piercing Sword Immortal. Although the Heart-Piercing Sword Immortal is not as good as the Star Domain Sword Emperor, he is still a terrifying existence at the level of Yuan Shen. I have the inheritance of the Monkey King, who is a real immortal. However, this must not be known to others. With my current performance, many means, plus the immobilization technique and violence technique, there will always be people who will doubt whether I have obtained any inheritance. In this case, I should actually learn from them and announce to the world that I have obtained some inheritance. In this way, even if I use the immobilization technique and violence technique, it will not be so strange. However, Wu Yu knew very well that he absolutely could not say that he had obtained the inheritance of an immortal. He should find someone who seems to have existed in history, but no one is particularly familiar with him, or directly make up one himself, who is about the same as the Heart-Piercing Sword Immortal, or a little better than him. With the cover of inheritance, when he uses violence and immobilization in the future, he can say that it comes from that inheritance, so he doesn't have to be sneaky. When he just thought of this, Zhao Xianxian was already standing in front of him, with flying black hair and a pair of bloody eyes in his black hair, staring at Wu Yu like a ferocious beast. Wanjiangxianzhen, I can't kill you, but I will destroy you and make you a waste from now on, and be eliminated by Shushan. Zhao Xianxian said word by word in a cold tone. Wu Yu was too lazy to listen to his useless words. He looked up and saw that it seemed that he had defeated He Taiyao, but the Galaxy Sword Saint still had no reaction. Forget it, then kill this Zhao Xianxian again and let him see if I, Wu Yu, am qualified. Unexpectedly, just as the battle was about to start, Zhao Suingxian's father Zhao Tianjian led a group of disciples from the punishment hall and rushed to the field. /U003CE /U003E /U003CE /U003F. Follow the official QQ public account 17K, ID, Love 17K, to read the latest information and get the latest information at any time. /U003C/E /U003E /U003C/E /U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 252. Comrades, I, Zhao Tianjian of the Punishment Hall, would like to interrupt you first. Zhao Tianjian's face was cold and his voice was loud. He appeared at this critical moment, which was a bit disappointing, but everyone was curious, what is this guy up to? Wu Yu glanced at him and then at Zhao Xianxian. Zhao Xianxian probably didn't even know what his father was going to do. He just waved his hands impatiently and said, "Go away and don't come here to cause trouble." Zhao Tianjian smiled awkwardly. He accommodated his son, but he did not leave. Instead, he faced Wu Yu and took out a black and white token with a magic circle drawn on it that could not be copied. He said loudly, "Punishment, the punishment order of the palace is here. Everyone, please pay attention." Shushan disciple Wu Yu was originally a disciple of King Gli Sword Palace Futu Palace. In order to seek glory and wealth, he actually killed his master Zhang Futu and committed the most intolerable crime of murder. The evidence is conclusive. After confirmation and trial by all the officials of the punishment hall, it was decided to execute Wu Yu and imprison him. Penalty order? Wu Yu knew that once the punishment order was issued, it was basically equivalent to the will of the entire punishment palace. In other words, if Zhao Tianjian had not stolen the punishment order and misused it, then the entire punishment palace would have confirmed Wu Yu's crime. The person in charge of the punishment hall in the Fanjian domain was at most 2 earth sword levels. Wu Yu was puzzled. He thought that the Zhang Futu incident had been over long ago. Why did the punishment hall suddenly appear again? Take yourself into the prison of 10,000 swords penetrating the heart, and Zhao Tianjian will appear before you fight Zhao Xianxian? Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, Shen Xingyu appeared in front of Zhao Tianjian and took the punishment order in Zhao Tianjian's hand. With just one glance, she knew that the punishment order was true, which made her puzzled. Those 2 guys from the punishment hall, I've already told them, are they still so ignorant? This made Shen Xingyu crazy and wanted to tear those 2 people apart. The problem now is that the establishment of the punishment hall was decided by the entire Shushan. In the public trial of the Fandan disciples, especially once the punishment order was issued, even Shen Xingyu could not actually interfere. I am afraid that the Galaxy Sword Master only by taking action can Wu Yu be saved. Go away, let's wait until they finish the battle. Shen Xingyu was also anxious and swept Zhao Tianjian and the others away. As for Zhao Xianxian, he burst into laughter. He looked at Wu Yu and felt a lot more relaxed. He said, "It seems that my good-for-nothing dad gave me a surprise. In this way, Wu Yu, you don't care about the outcome. You will suffer the pain of 10,000 swords pierce the heart. However, this is what you deserve. You even killed your own master. Your morals are so corrupt that you don't even have the qualifications to become a Shushan disciple, and you still want to become one. A disciple of the Galaxy Sword Master." Shen Xingyu was also irritable and couldn't figure out what went wrong. She said to Wu Yu, "Don't be affected and concentrate on completing this challenge. Although the punishment order has been issued, if my brother is willing, he might be able to help you. The key is that the Zinc Sword Master is willing. The punishment order is difficult for even Shen Xingyu to handle. If he loses to Zhao Xianxian this time, the problem will be big. The 10,000 swords penetrating heart prison in Shushan is not a human being. A place that can afford it? Force me." Wu Yu really felt that he seemed to be forced to a dead end. This incident about Zhang Futu made Wu Yu deeply understand the horror of public opinion. Sometimes, when the truth faces public opinion, it is almost vulnerable. Many people simply don't want to know what the facts are. When they are biased against a person or a matter, as long as they are led by public opinion, even if Wu Yu is innocent, he will not be able to turn around in this matter. Unless he stands at a high enough peak and controls the right to speak. This is the only possibility to wash away this crime. If you practice Taoism, you will definitely go against the will of heaven. One day, you will reach the top of the mountain and see all the mountains at a glance. The turmoil caused by Zhao Tianjian caused a huge uproar. Ordinary people would have been frightened, let alone fighting a character like Zhao Xianxian. But from beginning to end, Wu Yu was still calm, and he tried his best to calm himself down. When he came down, there was only one enemy in his eyes, and that was Zhao Xianxian, who was gloating about Wu Yu's misfortune. Since the punishment palace has issued a punishment order, then this matter must be true. I didn't expect that Wu Yu was really so poor. He was such an evil person that he even dared to kill his own master. That Galaxy Sword Master, if you dare to accept him as your disciple, you are blind. Such a disciple would have to kill him, many people lamented. At least the punishment hall has always been fair, and there will be no mistakes this time. It is said that there were many disciples from the Buddha hall watching at that time. This disciple named Wu Yu is ruthless and has a devilish temperament. It seems that he is going to be beaten this time. 10,000 swords pierce the heart. Hell, this is really his retribution. I'm afraid that if he defeats Zhao Xianxian and the Galaxy Sword Master accepts him as his disciple and protects him, the punishment hall can't do anything to the Galaxy Sword Master's disciples. However, I guess the Galaxy Sword Master has clearly seen Wu Yu's true face. You are wrong. Zhao Xianxian is much better than He Taiyu. Every time He Taiyu challenged him, he was defeated. Later he fell in love with him and became a Taoist couple with him. Wu Yu narrowly defeated He Taiyu. 80% the above are not Zhao Xuanxian's opponents. In these years, have you ever seen Zhao Xianxian defeated by an opponent of the same age? The noise was like dozens of flies flying in the airs. A normal person would have gone crazy long ago, or would have made useless clarifications. Wu Yu was affected, so he visualized the monkey in his mind. When the unrivaled Monkey King bathed in flames appeared in his mind, and felt the stern, domineering, and superior look in his eyes, Wu Yu felt very calm in his heart, and even had a strong feeling. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. All living beings are like ants, and their words are meaningless to me. Only by detachment can I get rid of them and block their mouths. In this way, Zhao Xianxian became the only target in front of Wu Yu. At this moment, the two of them were on fire and wanted to rush together. The battle has already started without announcing it. The two of them even started to compete from the very beginning. In Zhao Xuanxian's hand, he was holding a blood-colored long sword. Before the sword could kill anyone, it was dripping blood continuously, dripping on the ground, and even corroding the land within a radius of at least 3 feet. In the long sword, every formation is as terrifying as a ghostly face riddled with holes. It is said that this is a ghost cultivator, named Blood River Killing Sword. Xuanhuan Immortal sect has strict restrictions on exchanging a small number of ghost cultivating weapons, and even the merits required are higher. It is said that Zhao Xianxian spent more than 900 merits on the Blood River Killing Sword worth about 700 gold elixirs. Replaced. The reason why he was willing to spend an extra $200 was because the Blood River Killing Sword suited him very well. Zhao Xuanxian's immortal root, named Blood Soul, can turn him into a blood shadow all over the sky and a river of blood. His power in terms of blood is greatly increased. Apart from his appearance, this person is even more like a ghost cultivator. Wu Yu's fate is almost certain. Under this influence, what will happen in this battle makes these millions of eyes look forward to it. After Wu Yu defeated He Taiyu, people wondered whether this would be a close battle. It is a disgrace to us to have such a cancer like you in Xuanhuan. Today, I, Zhao Xianxian, will avenge you on behalf of your master, Zhang Futu, in order to sacrifice his spirit in heaven. Zhao Xianxian waved the Blood River Killing Sword. At this moment, his body suddenly changed, turning from a human form into a liquid state, and turned into a river of blood, sweeping away and blocking Wu Yu's way. The Blood River Killing Sword is hidden in this blood river. Maybe the blood river itself is Zhao Xianxian, or maybe Zhao Xianxian is hidden in part of it. No one knows the specific details. Wu Yu was indeed shocked by such unimaginable things, such as turning a river of blood into a river of blood to fight with him. Now he was extremely calm. The yin and yang Dao sword in his hand swept through yin and yang. Compared with Zhao Xianxian, Wu Yu is indeed more like a sword cultivator. Seeing the battle begin, everyone shut their mouths and watched the battle. The blood river was vast and magnificent, and it was revolving around Wu Yu. It was really gorgeous. I still couldn't help but admire that Zhao Xuanxian's move was indeed an art. On the other hand, Wu Yu looked much paler. The Taoist technique that Zhao Xianxian is best at is said to be called the 10,000 Shadows Killing Sword Technique, which is of higher value. Many Huangjian level disciples are demanding it, but Zhao Xianxian is almost the only one who is good at it. In the Blood River, the sword shadow changes. In the river, tens of thousands of sword lights can be vaguely seen dancing, and the sword shadows are heavy. It is obvious that the sword technique of killing thousands of shadows has taken shape. I am afraid that in the next moment, the killing swordsmanship of thousands of shadows the swordsmanship will be hidden in the river of blood, rushing in like a wave, strangling Wu Yu in the thousands of shadow killing swordsmanship. Between the light of calcium carbide, Wu Yu was watching Zhao Xuanxian's brilliant performance indifferently from beginning to end. He just silently put the yin and yang Tao swords together again. At that moment when the river of blood surged and the 10,000 sword intent roared, he looked towards he blew into the river of blood. The body holding technique. Wu Yu had been practicing the body holding technique for a longer time and had never dared to use it. He was afraid of encountering a being like Zhang Futu. This time he took the risk and performed the body holding technique in front of the public. All the previous preparations were to increase the probability of success of the body holding technique. Fortunately, hard work paid off and he succeeded. That Zhao Xianxian was at the 4th level of the Golden Core realm. He was 2 levels higher than Wu Yu, not 3. Wu Yu could just freeze him for an instant. In the duel between masters, a lot of changes can be decided in one moment. The Void God Killing Sword. Almost immediately after the immobilization technique, the Void God Killing Sword shot out, and the violent spatial sword energy penetrated through it. There were countless spatial sword energy hidden in that sword-shaped space. As for Zhao Xuanxian's Blood River, after the body fixing technique, although it changed in an instant, it actually showed a loose process of Taoism. Because others and Taoism were combined at this moment, the Blood River and the shadow killing technique almost overlapped, so this for a moment, he was completely stunned and delayed for another moment. 2 moments determine life and death. At the moment when the Blood River relaxes, the Void God Killing Sword penetrates and directly tears the Blood River into pieces. It turns into a rain of blood all over the sky and falls. In the rain of blood, Zhao Xuanxian's body it's like a kite with its string broken, falling down. This battle ended too quickly, less than 1/3 of the time of the battle between Wu Yu and He Taiyu. When Zhao Xianxian was defeated and unable to fall, who would believe his own eyes? /U003CE /U003E /U003CE /U003F. Follow the official QQ account 17K, ID, Love 17K, read early, and keep abreast of the latest information /U003C/E /U003E /U003C/E /U003E. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 253. The Blood River turned into Zhao Xianxian. Everyone took a closer look and saw that Zhao Xianxian was hit by the Void God Killing Sword, and his own Taoism collapsed, causing his flesh and blood to collapse. Although the appearance was still intact, in fact, the inside had been destroyed by Wu Yu's Void God Killing Sword. The damage caused by the sword was so severe that all the internal organs were in chaos. This may take a long time, or require good elixirs, which may lead to the root cause of the disease. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Zhao Xianxian, who had spent many years of unrestrained and glorious years, was now like a kite with its string cut off. He was defeated on the spot less than 10 breaths after the war started. There was no suspense. Not to mention anyone else, it was Zhao Xuanxian's father, Zhao Tianjian, who was completely confused. I even forgot to catch Zhao Xianxian. In the end, Wu Yu took action, reaching out and using silver charm to fly out and wrap around Zhao Xianxian, who was vomiting blood, so that he could land safely on the ground and lie down. It was only then that Zhao Tianjian howled miserably and rushed over with his sword. "My son," Zhao Tianjian screamed, waking up many people who were stunned. For a moment, this result was really hard to accept. Even Shen Xingyu, who was not far away, showed a state of extreme surprise. He widened his eyes as bright as stars and looked at Wu Yu with an incredible look. At this moment, Wu Yu looked around and saw those eyes. At this moment, he truly understood that this was the way to shut everyone up. He did it. It's really neat and tidy, not sloppy at all. Even after I finished it, I still felt calm. This is the best state of fighting. Those silent gazes are also a kind of enjoyment. However, Wu Yu knew that after this battle, it was time for all the results to be revealed. Shen Xingyu's surprised voice sounded, "Congratulations to Wu Yu. He defeated Zhao Xianxian and became the first in the 10,000 Swords Immortal ranking with the second level of the Golden Elixir Dao realm. This kind of achievement seems to be unprecedented since the establishment of Shushan. No one will come after you. Wu Yu's only shortcoming is that he is a little older. If he were 10 years younger, only 10 years old, he would definitely alarm the entire Shushan at this moment." After Shen Xingyu made the announcement, the outcome was obviously decided. At this time, Zhao Xianxian woke up a little and heard this. Unable to accept it, he suddenly vomited 3 liters of blood. He was held by Zhao Tianjian, who was gritting his teeth and looking pale. Not far from him was He Taiyu, who was recuperating. Unexpectedly, he and his Taoist couple were both defeated, which made Wu Yu's wish come true. It turned out to be a stepping stone. Zhao Xianxian was unwilling to give in. He didn't even understand why he was defeated like this. He vaguely remembered that Wu Yu seemed to have shown an incredible method. Looking at everyone around him, they seemed to be very convinced of Wu Yu's top talent. They can be heard discussing vaguely. "I didn't expect Wu Yu to reach such a level, and Zhao Xianxian was no match for him. Did you see clearly at the time that what he used to defeat Zhao Xianxian was not the void god-killing sword, but an incredible Taoist technique? I saw that Zhao Xianxian seemed unable to move for a moment. So terrifying. To be able to display such methods, Wu Yu is not only gifted but also more likely to have received some kind of inheritance. I have to say that although this person has major flaws in his moral character, he is definitely a terrifying genius and will be of great use to me in Shushan. The only shortcoming is that he is a little older and his level of improvement does not seem to be very fast, but he comes from a poor background. It's understandable. In other words, the Galaxy Sword Master will probably accept a disciple, and then he will definitely not let Wu Yu enter the 10,000 Swords Pierce the Heart prison. Wu Yu is of great value to Shushan. He is young and frivolous, so he may not be able to discipline him." Hearing these words, Zhao Xianxian became even more anxious and his face was red. However, the injury was too serious and he was shaking with anger. Instead, he cursed Zhao Tianjian angrily and said, "You old ghost, don't you have a punishment order? Take Wu Yu away quickly. Take him to the 1,000 Swords Penetrating Heart prison. What are you waiting for?" After Zhao Xianxian said this, some people also felt that this was the right time for Zhao Tianjian, and then it depends on what the Galaxy Sword Master decides. If Galaxy Sword Master didn't save Wu Yu would definitely be dead. Being scolded by Zhao Xianxian, Zhao Tianjian did not expect to panic. In front of the public, he looked pale and hesitated. Wu Yu was still a little worried about the punishment order. At this juncture, Zhao Tianjian did not come to capture him in anger, but hesitated. He naturally knew that there must be a problem. At this time, a white light flashed in the distance and instantly fell into Shen Xingyu's hand. It turned out to be a piece of talisman paper. This is the communication talisman that can be exchanged for 10 meritorious deeds. It can only be used once and can only be transferred to a fixed location. Place. I saw a line of small words written on the talisman. After reading it, Shen Xingyu's face turned cold, and he glared at Zhao Tianjian and said, "Zhao Tianjian, you are so brave. You actually fabricated right and wrong and falsely passed on orders. The master of the punishment hall is the punishment gate. After half a year of confinement and a little punishment, who said he would be imprisoned in 10,000 swords penetrating heart prison? I didn't expect the truth to be like this." Wu Yu had been depressed before. He had not offended the punishment palace, so why did the punishment palace still listen to Zhao Tianjian? In the punishment hall, Zhao Tianjian was not considered the person who could make the master of the punishment hall offend Shen Xingyu. Zhao Tianjian knelt down on the ground in panic and said, "It's unfair. I didn't say he was imprisoned in the prison of 10,000 swords pierce the heart. I just said he was punished and imprisoned. The prison of 10,000 swords pierce the heart was not what I said." When he said this, Wu Yu really remembered that when he announced the punishment order, he did not mention 10,000 swords penetrating the heart prison, but the problem was that he exaggerated a paragraph before, which was basically a rhetoric about being imprisoned in the 1,000 swords penetrating heart prison. There is such a huge difference between confinement and the prison of 10,000 swords penetrating the heart. Confinement only restricts movement and is the simplest punishment for disciples. During the period of confinement, you can practice, but you can't go out, earn merits, or exchange for treasures. Half a year of hard work is over. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. The 10,000 swords penetrating heart prison is about killing disciples and demons who have committed heinous crimes by directly piercing their hearts with 10,000 swords. Shen Xingyu sneered and said, "Although you didn't say it, when you announced Wu Yu's crime, you added your own personal grudges, added fuel to the fire, and confused right and wrong. The punishment hall has found out that Zhang Futu coveted Wu Yu's inheritance and tried to kidnap Wu Yu to rebel. After leaving Shushan, Wu Yu had no choice but to kill him with the soul-eating talisman. Although this move was inappropriate, it was the only way. Therefore, the punishment hall decided to use a small punishment and imprisoned him for half a year. In order to help your son defeat Wu Yu, not only spread rumors, but also damaged the fair image of the punishment palace, so the punishment palace decided to remove you from all positions and send you to the fire sword prison for 3 years as a warning, effective immediately." Zhao Tianjian's face turned pale when he heard this. Perhaps he didn't realize how many mistakes he had made until this moment. But it was already too late. The punishment from the punishment palace had already taken effect. He would be taken away soon. The punishment palace would not be polite. This made Zhao Xianxian twitch next to him and scolded Zhao Tianjian angrily, "What's wrong with your mind? I need your help. Why don't you die?" Zhao Tianjian burst into tears and said, I just want to influence his state of mind, so that you can be more confident in fighting, and let the Galaxy Sword Master accept you as his disciple." You, mother. Go to the fire sword prison and commit suicide. Don't let me see you again." Zhao Xianxian was so angry that he was half dead. When he said this, his energy and blood attacked his heart and he fell into coma. It was a good thing for him to be comatose now. This farce was so dizzying that people finally understood what was going on. The Palace of Punishment has good credibility in the Fanjian domain. Previously, people only regarded Zhao Tianjian as the representative of the Palace of Punishment. Now Zhao Tianjian himself has been punished by the Palace of Punishment, and even he admitted that he was fabricating right and wrong in an attempt to make Wu Yu had no intention of fighting and let his son win. In this way, the truth about Wu Yu and Zhang Futu had indeed been revealed. Wu Yu was finally avenged. "I'm confused." Zhao Tianjian knelt on the ground, holding his son and crying to the sky. However, no one sympathized with him. In fact, from his perspective, if Zhao Xianxian crushed Wu Yu, or even Galaxy Sword Master fell in love with Zhao Xianxian, his previous behavior would be harmless. Since ancient times, he has become a king and lost as a bandit, and probably no one cares about him. But the problem is that Zhao Xianxian failed miserably, so he could only become a victim. 3 years in the fire sword prison is a trivial matter. It is nothing more than suffering a little, but it will also damage your reputation and make you lose the face to see people in the future. It even hurt his son, adding insult to injury. After a while, Zhao Tianjian was taken away by his own people from the punishment hall, and the people from the punishment palace also wanted to take away Wu Yu. However, people are now waiting for the decision of the Galaxy Sword Master. In fact, if the Galaxy Sword Master wants to take away Wu Yu, this half-year confinement is not needed. It turns out that the truth is like this. Zhao Tianjian is also stupid to make such trouble. The key is that this Wu Yu, knowing that he was framed, did not argue, but relied on his strength to speak. It is really rare for him to be so calm at such a young age. Only by being neither arrogant nor impetuous can he go straight to the road. So, Wu Yu is indeed much better than Zhao Xianxian. Looking at it now, Galaxy Sword Master will definitely accept Wu Yu as his disciple. This Wu Yu has reached the sky in one step. From now on, people in Qingtian and Shushan are afraid that he will be allowed to walk. After the rain, the sky cleared up. Shenzingyu was not anxious at all. She came to Wu Yu, her face was full of smiles, and she was so happy that she said, "Congratulations, but there are 2 things about your performance today that even me are confused about. My good brother, is it time to take this opportunity to reveal the secret of your genius?" Shenzingyu was actually giving Wu Yu a chance. Now that Wu Yu is famous all over the world, many people will definitely be very curious about everything he has obtained and want to investigate its origins. This cannot be hidden, so it is better to say it directly. After speaking out, Shushan will protect him. At least no one inside the Shushan gate will dare to take Wu Yu's advice. At this moment, Wu Yu took a deep breath, faced everyone, and said, "Brothers, seniors, elders, Wu Yu has indeed received an inheritance. This inheritance comes from the Far East. /U003C/DD/U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 254. From now on in Shushan, everything you do should have a reason and a basis. Sometimes, whatever level of inheritance you get is also a kind of capital. For example, Zhao Xianxian received the inheritance of the heart-killing sword Immortal. Even though he is only a Fandan disciple now, his status is higher than that of a Xuanhuan level disciple. This is a symbol of personal genius and sustainability. In fact, in the vast history, there are many people who showed great talent when they were young, but gradually failed as they grew older, and in the end they were no different from ordinary people. Even in Shushan nowadays, there are many such people. Therefore, the genius at this time will not always be there, and if there is some kind of inheritance, it is basically certain that its future will be unlimited. After all, those ancient ascetics who left behind their mantles also had to select the ascetics. Now, everyone is listening attentively, waiting for Wu Yu's answer. Wu Yu made up some stuff in his mind, and after confirming that there were no loopholes, he said, "The inheritance I received came from the Far East, the bottom of the East China Sea. I got it by chance when I dived into the bottom of the sea. It was a deep trench, rarely visited by people. This is the inheritance comes from a cultivator called Change Taoist. I wonder if you have heard of this person." Of course, in the history of Dongsheng Shenzhou, there is no such role as a Taoist of change. Sure enough, everyone looked at each other with confused expressions. Apparently they had not heard of this transformed Taoist. In fact, for example, the Star Sword Emperor and the Heart-Killing Sword Immortal are both predecessors of Xuanhuan, so there are historical records. As long as they are mentioned, you can probably detect their information. But Dongsheng Divine Continent is so huge and has such a long history. In addition to many righteous sects, there are also countless side sections. It is impossible to verify how many people who are close to becoming immortals have appeared in endless years. Only Wu Yu dares to make bold nonsense about a character. He continued, I guess everyone has never heard of this person. He didn't leave any information. I'm afraid he was a person from before the Yuan dynasty, which is too ancient. The number of heaven and earth, 1 Yuan lasts more than 120,000 years. In such a long time, the controllers of Xuanhuan have changed for hundreds of generations. Shenzingyu frowned slightly and said, not to mention the place in the Far East, even the predecessors of Xuanhuan, 1 Yuan ago, can't record everything. Wu Yu nodded and said, this transformation Taoist is good at several transformation techniques. I have used these two before. So, everyone should have no doubts. Most people nodded, they were still very satisfied with Wu Yu's confession. Disclosing this information would be beneficial to Wu Yu. May I ask Wu Yu, what state did this transformation Taoist reach during his peak period? Someone asked. Wu Yu was well prepared and said, I don't know the details very well. I guess it's the peak of the form state of Yuan Shen. In fact, this point is very important. The great sage Monkey King was originally an immortal, but when he said it, he was scary and even caused huge riots. Therefore, changing his name and level was not only reasonable, but also helped colleagues who showed their value. He would not let people like Zhang Fu to be afraid of him. It is just right to name someone who is stronger than the Heart-Killing Sword Immortal, but not as good as the Star Domain Sword Emperor. Oh! Everyone nodded suddenly. They were still in awe of the existence of this realm. Listening to the transformation Taoist's ability, they felt that it was natural that Wu Yu could defeat Zhao Xianxian. From then on, Wu Yu was the number one Fandan disciple in Xuanhuan before becoming a Huangjian level disciple. Talent and strength are both number one. Next, look at the identity. As for identity, he needs the Galaxy Sword Master to give him. Having said so much, Wu Yu also made it clear that the most important thing now is everyone's waiting. At this moment, almost hundreds of thousands of people raised their heads, waiting for the Galaxy Sword Master's final decision. Wu Yu's performance today was almost perfect. Coupled with the inheritance of the changed Taoist, Galaxy Sword Master is 100% prepared to accept him. Yes, Wu Yu is indeed much better than Zhao Xianxian. If Galaxy Sword Master is interested in Fandan disciple, the only possibility is Wu Yu. In the beginning, Wu Yu only defeated Li Kanghai, and Galaxy Sword Master was interested in him. Now his performance has improved several times. I guess it is done. With such an identity, Wu Yu is at least equivalent to Earth Sword level disciple. No, based on the progress of Galaxy Sword Master in the next few years, he might become the Xuanhuan Sword Master level in the next moment. Stepping into the Holy Land of Xuanhuan Immortal Domain, Wu Yu will also be in a better position. At least he will be treated as a Tianjian level disciple. I'm afraid the four major sword realms of Qingtian and Xuanhuan all follow him. All the sword cultivators in the mountains and plains are generally optimistic about Wu Yu. Among them are a large number of the four major sword-level disciples from Qingtian Shu Mountain. All the disciples in the 99 sword palaces in the sword domain are following Wu Yu as their role model. In 1 year, Wu Yu could be regarded as a legend in Xuanhuan after climbing to the position of being noticed by millions of people. At this time, even he himself was actually a little nervous. You have broken through like this today. You should have passed the test of the Galaxy Sword Master, right? Wu Yu still had some confidence in his heart. Of course, if Wu Yu reached the third level of the Golden Core Realm today, he would be sure to defeat these two people without using violence or body-holding techniques. Brother, is it? Shenzingyu was also confident and asked with a smile. At this moment, the stars in the sky suddenly trembled and burst out with shining light. The brightness of these stars even surpassed the sun in the sky, making the sky become two suns in an instant. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Everyone was almost blinded by the flash and quickly closed their eyes. It wasn't until a long time ago that the light dimmed. At this time, everyone was full of shock. Suddenly someone exclaimed, "Galaxy Sword Master has made a breakthrough. From today on, he is the real Xuanhuan Sword Master. The youngest Xuanhuan Sword Master. At least within 10,000 years, he is the youngest one. Oh my god, this person who is like a true immortal actually succeeded today. It really doesn't matter if the title of Galaxy Sword Master is sealed earlier." This sudden change also made Wu Yu himself feel excited. Although this person was supervising the 10,000 Swords Immortal battle, he still did not forget to practice, and even succeeded in breaking through 10 months later. He is truly a Taoist idiot. Now, the starlight is gradually dimming. The Galaxy Sword Master successfully broke through, which was a great joy. However, people still remembered the last suspense. In fact, they all felt that the problem was not big, so they all looked at Wu Yu with envy. But what happened next was a bit unexpected. I saw that star in the sky, after shining extremely brightly, suddenly gradually dimmed, and even dimmed more and more, until finally, it disappeared out of thin air, and it seemed that there was no trace of it in the entire Wanjian Fixian mountain. Brother, Shenzingyu's smile stopped and he looked around, and sure enough he found that the person was no longer there. People might have guessed that he would suddenly appear in front of Wu Yu, but in fact, time passed quietly for at least 20 breaths, and the Galaxy Sword Master never appeared again. "He has probably left," said an Earth Sword level disciple hiding in the crowd. "Yes, left. The Galaxy Sword Master has left." Soon, the news began to spread. Suddenly, it swept through the entire Wanjian Fixian mountain again. Nowadays, when people look at Wu Yu, they feel a little embarrassed. When everyone was dissatisfied with him, he conquered everyone with his strength. But when everyone was optimistic about him, the Galaxy Sword Master actually left at this time. So what does he mean? Could it be that Wu Yu failed his test? Didn't he catch his eye? I think Wu Yu is very good, but the Galaxy Sword Master's vision is still much higher than we imagined. Wu Yu is embarrassed now. Let him be proud. Now that Galaxy Sword Master doesn't like him, then there is no difference between us. I have said it a long time ago, how could a figure like Galaxy Sword Master accept Fan Dan as a disciple? The first direct disciple. Soon, someone added insult to injury. Of course, these people were the group of people who hated Wu Yu very much from the beginning, such as the disciples of the Buddha Temple and Zhao Suangxian's cronies. Even at this time, Zhao Xianxian and He Taiyu were awake. For a moment, they looked up to the sky and laughed. That sarcastic smile couldn't be more satisfying. I'm afraid that for Zhao Xianxian, he felt that Wu Yu fell directly from heaven to hell. But in fact, facing such a situation, Wu Yu felt calm and even felt relieved. In fact, when he came to Xuanhuan, he didn't really want to become a disciple. Now all his master can give him is a shelter. For Wu Yu, this may not be that important because he is afraid that the Galaxy Sword Master will restrict his freedom. Freedom is the most important to him. It was precisely because of this that when the Galaxy Sword Master disappeared, he was not as lost as everyone imagined. After all, it was not him who took the initiative to seek the Sword Master of the Galaxy as his master from the very beginning, which was different from the situation in Fengxia. It's just that so many people are gloating about their misfortune, and looking at their faces, Wu Yu is still a little unhappy. Wu Yu, I don't know what's going on. Shenzingyu stood in front of him with a guilty look on his face. She looked depressed and helpless. In fact, She also felt that Wu Yu performed well. But she still couldn't guess what her brother was thinking. Just like she couldn't figure out why Galaxy Sword Master paid attention to Wu Yu at first. It doesn't matter, Sister Shen. At least I've gotten to know you and become who I am today. I can walk on my own and it won't be in the way. You brought me to the Dozhan Sword Palace, and I'm very grateful to you. However, Wu Yu acted more lightly than she expected. Aren't you very disappointed? Shen Xingyu asked sympathetically. Wu Yu shook his head and said, everyone has their own destiny, so he must have his reasons for arranging it this way. Wu Yu didn't think that the Galaxy Sword Master was making fun of him. There was no need for a person like him to do this. He guessed in his mind that the Galaxy Sword Master probably felt it was inappropriate. Or, he felt that there was nothing he could teach him, at least Wu Yu would not feel that he could not get into his eyes. Mobile phone users. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 255. Shen Xingyu liked him very much and said, however, even if he takes you as his disciple, I will still be your sister from now on. If you need help, you can come to me at any time. I will leave you 3 communication talismans first. Wu Yu accepted the 3 talismans she gave her, and these 3 talismans could be delivered to her residence on Qingtianshu Mountain. With Shen Xingyu's words, he felt more at ease. This woman is indeed very good to herself. Wu Yu respected her very much. At this time, there were many people who felt sorry, secretly happy, and even more people who were gloating about the misfortune. However, the 10,000 Swords Fairy War was over, and for a while, the mortal sword realm would no longer be so lively. The person overseeing the 10,000 swordsmen battle next time will definitely not be the Galaxy Sword Master, so it is impossible for something as lively as this time to happen. Wu Yu is currently only at the 2nd level of the Golden Core realm, and he is expected to rule the top of the 10,000 Swords Immortal rankings for a long time. Next, several heavenly sword level disciples appeared around Wu Yu. Among them, 3 are old men, 2 men, 1 woman, and 2 middle-aged men. These 5 are all terrifying existences of Zifukang Haijing. They can float in the void without even using a sword. From their bodies, you can feel the feeling of evolving the sword to the extreme, which is awesome. Unfathomable. This is how Wu Yu feels about these 5 heavenly sword level disciples. These few in front of me, placed on the divine continent, also have the status of grand masters of that generation. When they appeared, the whole place was silent for a moment, and no one dared to talk anymore. I, Yan Shihei, known as the Red Sea Swordsman, have been at the heavenly sword level for 80 years. Although he is not as good as Shen Xinjiao, he can be ranked 73 in the heavenly sword immortal ranking. Wu Yu, I accept you as my disciple. Are you willing? An old man wearing a red robe, with a long beard and a ruddy face said domineeringly. A kind old woman next to her smiled and said, if you talk about the heavenly sword immortal ranking, I, Tang Dongling, am rank 68, much higher than you, Yan Shihei. Wu Yu, if you become my disciple, I will definitely train you. Are you willing to be a Tian sword level disciple and even allow you to become a Shushan sword master one day? In addition to them, the other 3 people also hurriedly extended their olive branches to Wu Yu, for fear that they would be a step too late and be overtaken by others. Among this group of people, the highest one is ranked 57th on the Heavenly Sword Immortal ranking, followed by several more Heavenly Sword level disciples, and the highest one is ranked 39th. Seeing so many Heavenly Sword level disciples appearing, even some Earth Sword level disciples who had moved before did not dare to come forward. This proves from the side that Wu Yu still conquered most people. This is because Galaxy Sword Master has just abandoned Wu Yu. If some time passes, Shushan Sword Master may appear directly. You must know that Zhao Xianxian and He Taiyu were both looking for Shushan Sword Master. However, Wu Yu did not hesitate much. He bowed and apologized, saying, thank you for your kindness, seniors. I failed to pass the test of Galaxy Sword Master today. Wu Yu knows that he still has many shortcomings, so he still wants to continue working hard and strive to win the victory of Galaxy Sword Master. The Sword Master will accept me as his disciple one day. Wu Yu will definitely remember the care and approval of all of you. In fact, he only said this after thinking about it. This is the best way to say it. The Galaxy Sword Master needs to be moved out in front of him so that no one will keep showing up to accept him as his disciple. In fact, at this time, what Wu Yu wanted more was freedom. He thought clearly that if he struggled on his own in the future, he felt that he might not be worse than becoming a disciple of the Galaxy Sword Master. This time he had made up his mind, no matter who it was, he didn't even worship. It doesn't matter. You have great ambitions, and we support them. However, these seniors are very reasonable. After all, Wu Yu responded very politely, and they also consider themselves inferior to Shenzhen Jiao. What a wishful thinking. Even the Galaxy Sword Saint has rejected him, and he is so shameless that he wants the Galaxy Sword Saint to fall in love with him again. Shameless. Indeed, it's so beautiful to think about. The Sword Master of the Galaxy is a man of one word. There's no way he could regret the decision he made. Of course, there are also jealous people who say this. At this time, Shenzhen announced on behalf of Shenzhen Jiao that the Battle of 10,000 Swords Immortals was completely over, and the list of 10,000 Swords Immortals had been rearranged. From now on, everyone can disperse. After all, everyone has their own things to do and can't waste time here. After the announcement, Shenzhen said to Wu Yu, "As for my brother, I will find an opportunity to persuade him. However, for the sake of fairness, the punishment hall still punished you a little. This punishment is a trivial matter and does not matter. It is just that from now on, you have to stay in the Heart Sword prison for half a year. Within this half year, no matter what happens, you can't even leave the Heart Sword prison, do you understand?" Regarding the Heart Sword prison, Wu Yu learned about it in the Yin Dao Lu. This is the easiest punishment for Shushan disciples. It is basically equivalent to seclusion and meditation. Within this 6 months, it will not affect Wu Yu's cultivation. Within the sword prison, you can do almost anything. I'll send you there. In fact, the departure of the Heart Sword prison does not require dispatching from the punishment hall, the disciples can just go there by themselves. Wu Yu and Shenzhen flew to the Heart Sword prison with their swords. As soon as they left, the people in the 10,000 Swords Flying Immortal Mountain also dispersed one after another. This matter has come to an end. When they hear news about Wu Yu again, it will definitely be 6 months later. Speeding over the Shu Mountains and shuttling between the clouds, Wu Yu's state of mind had already undergone many changes. "I can't tell, you're pretty cool. You're lucky enough to not even frown after such a blow." Shenzhen's purple sword robe was fluttering in the wind, her long hair flying, and her exquisite figure revealed in the wind. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. That's a trivial matter. Wu Yu was in a good mood now. After all, the most difficult battle was over and he felt much more relaxed now. Seeing his arrogance, Shenzhen couldn't help but chuckle and said, "You're such a slick guy. Geniuses are the least aware in this world. They fell down accidentally. Don't be so arrogant." Of course, she was just kidding. The two chatted, the atmosphere was pleasant, and the relationship seemed to have taken another step forward. Although the Galaxy Sword Master thing didn't work out, it didn't seem to affect them becoming siblings and good friends. Shenzhen has already guaranteed that if there is any trouble in the future, he can come to her. Of course, Wu Yu tried his best not to trouble her. Only by yourself can you push yourself to your limits. Soon after, Wu Yu saw the existence of Heart Sword Prison from a distance. In front of us are 2 towering mountain peaks, which are very majestic. Between the 2 peaks, there is a thin line of sky. The Heart Sword Prison is in this thin line of sky. This is one of the forbidden areas in Xuanhuan. Disciples who have not received punishment cannot enter casually. Therefore, even Shen Xingyu is not qualified to enter. She can only send Wu Yu to the door. Wu Yu looked from a distance and saw that there seemed to be a big straight tree in the thin line of sky. The big tree was pitch black, as if dyed black by ink, without a trace of color. Most of the tree was hidden in the clouds and mist. Looming, its scattered branches look a bit like ghost claws. This tree is the famous Heart Sword tree. The Heart Sword Prison was established based on the Heart Sword tree. Judging from the guidebook, the Heart Sword tree is a fairy with 5 spiritual patterns. This level of fairy is considered to be super high, but it has no medicinal value and its value is reflected in other directions. Outside, even the heavenly sword level disciples would snatch this fairy spirit with 5 spiritual lines and medicinal value. Looking from a distance, I found that the Heart Sword tree had no leaves, but there were densely packed fruits, about 1,000 or so. From a distance, I could see that the fruits were only the size of a finger, but when I got closer, I could see the heart. The sword tree is hundreds of feet high, and each of the fruits on it is about 5 feet in diameter. Several people can squeeze into it. Wu Yu knew that the fruit of the Heart Sword tree was actually a solitary room. It was originally a fruit, but it was transformed by the strong men of Xuanhuan, retaining its characteristics and becoming a kind of prison. As long as you enter the Xiantian, you are within the scope of the Heart Sword prison. Therefore, Shen Xingyu cannot take Wu Yu in and can only part ways here. Okay, we've been chatting for so long, and I'm not my mother-in-law, so let's say goodbye here. When you come out and have time, you have to pass it on to me. Anyway, I'll come down to see you then. It is easy for her to find Wu Yu, but it is difficult for Wu Yu to find her. Farewell. Soon, Shen Xingyu left with his sword. Looking at her back, Wu Yu couldn't help but feel a little lost. It can be said that it was Shen Xingyu and Shen Xinjiao who changed my destiny during this period. The Heart Sword prison is not a bad thing for him, but a good thing, because it is a sedimentation that allows him to practice in an extremely quiet environment. Looking back at the Heart Sword tree, Wu Yu's eyes became intense. Think of this as the place where I start my second step. The second step is to attack the Qingtianshu mountain. He was full of fighting spirit and ready to walk in. Suddenly, someone called him from behind. The voice was delicate and familiar, calling himself brother. Wu Yu was startled and turned around immediately. It's not an illusion. 7 months have passed. Behind him, stood a slim girl. She had grown up a lot and looked even more stunning. She looked more and more like the 9 Immortals. She was even more attracted to Wu Yu than the 9 Immortals. That's right, it's Nangong Wei. She actually showed up. Now their eyes were looking at each other, with crystal tears flowing in her eyes. She didn't expect that they had just seen each other today after they had said goodbye that day. Why seeing her appear was an unexpected surprise for Wu Yu. He was excited and hurriedly ran up to her, hugged her in his arms, and said with a smile, "Why did you come to me again? You left without saying goodbye. I haven't found you yet. I thought you had gone back to Qingtianshu-san. You have been hiding for so long without coming to see me." In the Immortal War Palace, Wu Yu did go out to look for her several times. However, Nangong Wei's tears couldn't stop falling, and she said, "Brother, something happened in the middle. Wei is here to tell you today. In fact, I have not been in the mortal sword domain for the past 7 months, and I have indeed returned to Qingtianshu mountain. And today, I come to you, actually to say goodbye to you. Let me give you a preview. In the next 3 days, Madman will be busy with some trivial matters at home, so the updates will be at night. It will be fixed by next Thursday and will be updated more. Try to have 4 updates in a few days. Thank you for your support and understanding, mobile phone users. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 256. No wonder she couldn't be found in Fanjianyu. It turned out that she had gone to Qingtianshu Mountain. The wind and snow were falling, and the eyes were covered with white. The girl in the snow had misty eyes with tears, which was endearing. Wu Yu looked down at her charming face and asked, "So, you are here to tell me what happened, right?" Nangongwei has always been very secretive, but Wu Yu would not take the initiative to ask questions unless she told her. Sure enough, she nodded slightly and said softly, "Last time after Zhang Futu died, I went to find Shenzingyu and let Shenzhenjiao see him. He was familiar with my father, so he told his whereabouts, and my father told him about my whereabouts. I took him back. He detained me for 7 months because I made some decisions recently, so he allowed me to come out and see you once." It sounds like Nangongwei is still unwilling to reveal the identity of her father. Of course, it may be because there is no benefit to Wu Yu knowing that Nangongwei still hides. Wu Yu nodded slightly and asked her to continue. "Actually, I ran away from home at the beginning because my father wanted me to have a better future, so he gave me a chance to practice in the Shushan Samsara cave. But I heard that the Shushan Samsara cave was very hard. An extreme way of practice can even change a person's character, so I was a little scared and ran away because I felt that since I had so many people protecting me, I didn't need to be so strong or work so hard. But now I don't think so." Nangongwei wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes, smiled slightly, and her eyes became firmer. Wu Yu had read Yin Dao Lu and knew a lot about Shu Mountain, but he didn't seem to have heard of the Shu Mountain reincarnation cave, let alone what the so-called extreme practice method was. After thinking about it carefully, he realized that Nangongwei's identity might be higher than imagined, and she might be the child of a Shushan sword master. He was a little yearning for the Shushan Samsara cave. After all, it was something he was not qualified to touch. He asked Nangongwei, "Why did you change your mind?" Nangongwei pursed her lips, a little shy, and said, "These days, together with my brother, seeing him working so hard, and the dangers we encountered after leaving Shushan, and the threat you faced from Zhang Futu, all gave me a lot of help. Some warnings made me understand that no one can protect Wire for the rest of his life. Wire must also work hard to protect the people he cares about. Also, I must avenge my mother and share the hatred for my father. So, I decided. Went to the Shu Mountain reincarnation cave to study." "I see. Wu Yu can also understand that every child has a time to grow up." Nangongwei was afraid of the hard work of cultivation and ran away from home to meet him. Instead, she learned Wu Yu's spirit and truly grew and matured. "Brother, am I right to make this decision?" Nangongwei asked. "This shows that Wei has grown up." "Of course it is right. Wu Yu's strongest will is to cultivate Taoism and become an immortal. In fact, he also hopes that Nangongwei will have a better future in the future." "That's great, it's just a pity that I won't be able to see my brother again for a long time," Nangongwei said in despair. Seeing her hanging her head with tears in her eyes, Wu Yu asked, "How long will you stay in the Shushan Samsara cave?" Nangongwei said, "I don't know, it can be as little as 1 or 2 years, as much as 3 or 4 years. After all, it is the first time to go in. It is said that you can't stay too long, otherwise your mind will be confused and you will become a murderer." Wu Yu thought it was more than 10 years. When he heard this time, he laughed and said, "A monastic career, even if it lasts for 3 or 4 years, is just a blink of an eye. Just don't worry. It should be noted that getting the best results is the key, the best reward for your father." Nangongwei asked, "Brother, will you be proud of me too, right?" Her innocent eyes were full of expectation. Of course. Wu Yu patted her shoulder and said, Nangongwei showed a smile again. She suddenly took Wu Yu's hand and said, "Brother, I will come to you when I come out of the Shu Mountain reincarnation cave. When the time comes, Wei will compete with you to see who is the best, even more powerful. If you lose then, just don't cry," Wu Yu said with a smile. "I hate it, I won't." Nangongwei stared at him with her big shining eyes, and suddenly said firmly, "Then remember our agreement, brother, can't forget me." "Of course not." Wu Yu looked at the girl. Her purity and naturalness were different from other women Wu Yu had met. For example, the 9 Immortals and others were more mature than Wu Yu. Only Nangongwei, he feels like a childhood sweetheart. In a daze, this is a bit like an agreement between lovers. Nangongwei seemed to have a lot of words in her heart, but she didn't dare to say them out. Her heart was beating hard and she hesitated. She suddenly took out a sumuru bag. The sumuru bag was wrapped with colorful ribbons and tied into a bow. A lot of exquisite decorations have been added, and it is obvious that a lot of thought has been put into decorating the sumuru bag. In the wind and snow, in front of the heart sword tree in the sky, the girl in a yellow jacket shyly stretched out her hand and handed the sumuru bag into Wu Yu's hand. Her long eyelashes and voice trembled slightly, and she said, "Brother, this is a gift from me. You must accept it, and you cannot open it before I leave." It was such an exquisite gift. It was obvious that she had put a lot of thought into it and even thought about it all night long. When Wu Yu held the bag of sumuru, he looked at the shy and nervous girl looking at him in the wind and snow. He saw her face turned red due to nervousness, and saw the traces of tears still remaining in her eyes. Wu Yu suddenly felt a little moved. Maybe, this is the first time since I was born that I have this feeling of encountering love. Nangongwei is 15 years old, which is not young anymore. Wu Yu even witnessed her change from a girl to a young girl. She has grown very quickly during these times, and her height is almost the same as Shenzhengyu. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Thank you. Wu Yu accepted the sumuru bag and planned to carry it with him in the future. Just after sending it off, Nangongwei's tears welled up again. Her voice started to become hoarse and she couldn't help sobbing. She said nervously, "Brother, my father is urging me. I have to go. Goodbye." She was very reluctant to leave. Wu Yu didn't think 3 or 4 years was long, so he smiled and touched her head and said, "Don't cry so much. It's only the blink of an eye. I don't have time to prepare this time. I'll wait for you to come to me again, I'll give you another gift." Okay, she nodded slightly and looked at Wu Yu with tears in her eyes, as if she wanted to look at him a few more times. Then she finally wielded her sword and flew into the sky, disappearing into the wind and snow. In the air, the girl was still lingering. There was a faint fragrance on her body, and then the wind and snow intensified, gradually filling the sky, but after searching around, she could no longer be seen. Where? Wu Yu was still a little disappointed. He looked around and saw the blue sky of Shu Mountain that penetrated the sky. It was extremely vigorous, and every trace of it seemed to hide infinite mysteries. Unfortunately, he couldn't go up, let alone the reincarnation of Shu Mountain. Hole's level. I have always thought of her as a child before, but today, I suddenly feel that she is a touching woman. Looking at the carefully prepared gift in his hand, Wu Yu felt a warmth in his heart. In this foreign country, with no relatives or friends, but there was a woman who treated him like this and showed her affection to him, so why should he be reserved? Now that Nangongwei had been gone for a while, he opened the sumuru bag. As soon as he opened it, Wu Yu's expression changed instantly. He couldn't believe it, and his whole person was in a state of shock. Without taking it out, Wu Yu knew that there was a lot of space inside the sumuru bag. It's enough to hold a mountain, and it's basically a sumuru bag that's at the level of a psychic weapon. It exceeded all the sumuru bags that Wu Yu had on him. Of course, this comes with freebies. The real gift is inside the sumuru bag. In the dead space of the magic weapon, there are a total of 9 golden coiled dragon pillars like sleeping giant beasts, arranged together in the direction of the 9 palaces. Each one is on each golden dragon pillar. There is a majestic, domineering, and leering golden dragon, with its fangs and claws showing. Its power is overwhelming. This golden coiled dragon pillar contained destructive power, so violent and turbulent that Wu Yu's whole body boiled just by looking at it. That's right, this is the 9 Directions demonic pillar that Wu Yu encountered in the main hall of the magical artifact palace, but was far from being able to afford it. Wu Yu was deeply attracted by this magic weapon when he first saw it. Wu Yu coveted this psychic magical weapon from Yanhuang Emperor City, but it was a pity that not even the corpse soul flower could buy this divine object. It can be said that the Zhifang demon suppressing pillar is basically the most terrifying psychic weapon. A cultivator like Bailey Fi Hung, who is at the 10th level of the Golden Elixir Dao realm, may not be able to compare with the Zhifang demon suppressing pillar with his magical weapon. The appearance of the 9 demon suppressing pillars made Wu Yu unable to calm down. He didn't expect that Nangong Wei would give him such a precious treasure. It was something Wu Yu had dreamed of, and it became the biggest surprise today. Of course, Nangong Wei has a distinguished status and has such a father. As long as she asks, it is really not difficult to give such a gift. However, obviously this is what she can get in exchange for entering the Shu Mountain reincarnation cave. Wu Yu knew the word repay best. This 9 Directions demonic suppression pillar was such a great gift that it was hard for him to bear Nangong Wei's kindness to him. From this gift, he could feel how much she cared about him. Maybe Wu Yu just expressed his desire for the 9 Directions demonic suppression pillar at the beginning, but she took it to heart. For a moment, Wu Yu was a little confused, feeling the power of the 9 Directions suppressing demon pillar, and then thinking of Nangong Wei's smile. He suddenly discovered that deep in the Sumuru bag, there was a handkerchief. The handkerchief was pure white, with several words embroidered on it with red fiery threads. When I return one day, I would like to join you in the double immortal palace. These 10 words made Wu Yu's chest burn like fire. The Hall of 2 Immortals is the place where Taoist couples form and stay together for life and death. /U003 sem /U003e /U003 sem /U003 follow the official QQ public account, ID, love, read it early, and keep abreast of the latest information /U003c/m /U003e /U003c/m /U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 257. These 10 words were embroidered on this pure white handkerchief with needle and thread. It was obvious that Nangong Wei was not proficient in this, and the embroidery was crooked, but it was these crookednesses that made Wu Yu see the nervousness, hesitation, and uneasiness in her heart when she was embroidering. Fortunately, she finally put the handkerchief in the sumi bag and handed it to Wu Yu's heart, so that Wu Yu completely understood her intentions. At that moment, Wu Yu's heart was roaring. He felt that he would probably never forget these 10 words in his life, and would never forget the strokes and trajectories of any of them. Through this handkerchief, it seemed that he could see her reluctance in her heart. Wu Yu suddenly regretted that he had just acted a little indifferent to the Shushan Samsara cave and didn't take it seriously. Nangong Wei knew more about this than he did. Even she felt it was hard and scary. How could it be a simple place? If not, why would she say goodbye to him and make it seem like a farewell between life and death? Wu Yu suddenly turned around and looked at Qingtian Shushan. He wanted to go back and talk to her again, but the towering Qingtian Shushan cut off his thoughts. This was a gap that he could not cross at present. Nangong Wei, I am afraid that in Shushan Immortal Realm, it is a forbidden place that even Tianjian level disciples cannot go to. If I want to go there and tell her, it will take at least 30 years. It is too late. He put the handkerchief back into the sumi bag and took a deep breath. Some people cannot be let down. Well, let's wait until we meet again." He smiled in the wind and snow, and his heart finally calmed down, but he had already made a decision in his heart. Defeat Du Yihei. Yan. Brother. Shuangxian Palace. Many young cultivators yearn for the place most. Immortal couples, life and death together, how attractive. How many stories have been passed down in the world and become eternal myths. It seems that we need to be more urgent. Otherwise, when Wei comes out, she will beat me, which will be embarrassing. He was straight and fierce in his heart. This time, he stepped directly into the scope of the heart sword prison without hesitation. The first step to take is to complete a certain degree of transformation in this heart sword prison, whether in realm, strength, or mind. Maybe it's because of inheritance. Wu Yu loves sticks more than swords, so he loves the nine-sided demon pillar very much, especially the nine-sided demon pillar comes from Nangang Wei's heart. However, he decided to continue to refine the golden elixir until the third level of the golden elixir avenue. In fact, the spiritual energy here in the heart sword prison is good. Although it can't be compared with the Battle Immortal Palace, it is much stronger than the Buddha Palace. Walking into the heart sword prison, getting closer and closer to the heart sword tree, Wu Yu arrived in the blink of an eye. He saw a black wooden house built under the heart sword tree. Wu Yu read the guide record and knew that there was a prison keeper in the wooden house, named Mengfuxian. It was said that he was a ground sword level disciple who was responsible for managing the heart sword prison, but he rarely showed up. When Wu Yu came to the wooden house, a withered voice came from inside, and the man asked, "Who is coming, and how long is the sentence?" "Wu Yu, half a year," Wu Yu answered simply. "Number 531 confinement room, go up by yourself. If you don't come out before the deadline, you will be fined for another half a year," Mengfuxian said. Wu Yu knew this. There was no guard at the heart sword prison, and the confinement room could be entered at will, so it all depended on self-consciousness. Of course, in Shushan, the most important thing that cannot be violated is the law, otherwise even the top-notch disciples will be punished. After Wu Yu thanked him, he flew up on his sword. The heart sword tree was very tall, and each black fruit was a confinement room. After flying to about half of the heart sword tree and searching for a while, he found out that this confinement room was a black fruit that was hollow inside, with only one door to open and enter. This fruit was called the heart fruit, and it was said that there was something strange inside. With Wu Yu's current eyesight, after opening the door of the heart fruit, he still found that it was pitch black inside, like the deadest night, with no sight of one's hand in front of one's face. For Wu Yu, this was almost impossible. It is said that there is a natural restriction inside the heart fruit, which is not a magic circle and is difficult to explain clearly. It is also part of the mystery of heaven and earth. In it, the vision is completely blocked. Even if you light a fire inside, you still can't see anything. It's like being blind. Sure enough, when he went in and closed the door of the heart fruit, there was a dead silence inside. Not only was it all black and he couldn't see anything, but there was even no sound at all, and he could hardly even hear the sound of his own clapping. Therefore, the heart fruit deprived him of not only vision, but also hearing. The heart sword prison is indeed a test of the mind. Wu Yu untied the samurai bag. He could not see the handkerchief, nor could he see the shining nine-direction demon pillar. Moreover, the space inside was very narrow. If he stood up, he would almost reach his head. However, for Wu Yu, this was also a kind of help. He quickly calmed down. Thinking of Nangang Wei, who was heading to the Shushan Samsara cave, he felt that he must be much more relaxed. "I just don't know what the Shushan Samsara cave is like. I hope I can have a chance to go in and take a look in the future," Wu Yu thought. After thinking about it, he sat cross-legged in the heart fruit and began to refine the golden elixir with the golden elixir method of the great grade heavenly immortal art. He had already lasted for 7 months before, and now he was just continuing. The spiritual energy of the heart sword prison is slightly worse than that of the Battle Immortal Palace. It is estimated that it will take 4 months to complete the 3-month task. At this time, I can use Yuan Jindan to speed up the progress, but unfortunately, I don't even have any merits, let alone Yuan Jindan. On the road of cultivation, poverty is still a big problem. Obviously, after leaving the Heart Sword prison, I have to earn more merits and obtain more resources. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Wu Yu is still very clear in his mind. Nangongwei is of noble status. I am afraid that many things are not as they wish. If he wants to have further development, Wu Yu feels that his capital is actually the most important reliance. Calm down and take the present with peace of mind. The Heart Sword prison is such a place, it can make people extremely calm. The thinking is extremely clear. It is said that many people voluntarily come to the Heart Sword prison to realize the Tao. Especially the tempering of the golden elixir, it is the same as refining iron. It needs thousands of hammers and tempers to make the golden elixir gaze to the extreme. The tiny golden elixir contains terrifying power and is polished again and again. Spiritual energy is fire, the magic of the golden elixir is a hammer, and Wu Yu is the iron smelter. He has the best hammer in the world to forge this golden elixir. After entering the rhythm, time gradually disappeared, and the time in the Heart Sword prison was much faster than expected. As time passed, Wu Yu occasionally thought about what Nangongwei would encounter in the Shushan Samsara cave during this time, and what progress she had made. This feeling of missing is actually quite interesting. At least in the short-term practice, in addition to longevity, there will be a very strong goal. He controlled the rhythm very well. After about 4 months, his golden elixir finally entered a new level. The elixir essence soared and reached the 3rd level of the golden elixir realm. It was very close to the 5th level of human elixir integration. Its white golden elixir, reaching a new realm, showed a more domineering divine power, and the surface was covered with thick white mist, like a tiny fairyland. Those white mists evolved all the time and changed into mysterious symbols. Golden elixir is more profound than qi condensation. Wu Yu continued to refine and stabilize his current state, and he had some insights. The first 3 levels of the Jindan Dao realm are still based on rigid, long-term tempering of the Jindan. But in the 4th and 5th levels, it is not just mechanical tempering. Sometimes you need some perception, a little bit, and communication with the world to better temper the Jindan. Otherwise, you will find that no matter how you temper it, the Jindan will not grow stronger, or even stay forever, even the Yuan Jindan will not work. For example, in the 4th level of the Jindan Dao realm, you need to perceive the world and adjust the changes on the surface of the Jindan to absorb and integrate more spiritual energy. The deeper the perception, the faster the Jindan will be tempered. In the 5th level of the Jindan Dao realm, you also need to be one with the Den before you can draw the Dao magic on it. Have a fighting method that is more powerful than Taoism. As for the 6th level of the Jindan Dao realm, it is even more complicated. Perhaps in the condensation Qi realm, there is a certain talent. You only need to spend a lot of time to condense the source of law to be able to rise to the Jindan Dao realm. In the first 3 levels of the Jindan Dao realm, repeated tempering of the Jindan, even if the Jindan magic method is poor, it takes decades, there is a possibility of success. But going up, the talent of thinking and understanding will play a greater role, even greater than the role of the golden elixir magic. Many geniuses may be very slow before the 3rd level of the golden elixir realm, but when they reach the 4th level, with their extraordinary understanding, their speed will even get faster and faster. At that time, the most important thing in the competition is probably a person's heart. Use your heart to feel the world, touch the ethereal, the way between heaven and earth, and then reflect it on the golden elixir. The golden elixir is not just a combination of elixir essence and elixir fire, but a condensation of the way. It is said that alchemy and drawing and copying the array will improve the realm of the heart and make a person's thinking more acute. After all, Alchemy tests the use of elixir fire, the dissection of tedious steps and the fine control, not to mention the array, which requires great concentration and fine operation. Let's not talk about the fourth level of the Jindan Dao realm. At least for the third level of the Jindan Dao realm, I can use a lot of Yuan Jindan to directly refine it. It's not until I break through to the fourth level that I need that kind of understanding. However, Yuan Jindan needs to be earned, and I still need 2 months in this Heart Sword prison. Use this time to get familiar with the 9 Directions Demon Pillar. So far, Wu Yu has not sacrificed the 9 Directions Demon Pillar. The 100 Ghosts Blood Pillar was originally a weapon for ghost cultivators, but Wu Yu gave it up directly. It was not suitable for his state of mind. If he used it too much, it would increase his killing heart. In this extreme darkness, he couldn't see the appearance of the 9 Directions Demon Pillar. But he could feel the arrogant and violent spirit of the 9 Directions Demon Pillar. The so-called spiritual instrument is already spiritual, like a small beast, but when Wu Yu sacrificed it, it was also a taming of it. As Wu Yu expected, it is not easy to tame a beast. Even the Yin-Yang Dao sword couldn't resist Wu Yu, but this 9-sided demon-suppressing pillar fought against Wu Yu like a beast. /U003 sem /U003e /U003 sem /U003 follow the official QQ public account, ID, love, read first, and get the latest information at any time /U003c/m /U003e /U003c/m /U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 258. In the darkness, the 9 golden coiled dragon pillars were placed in front of Wu Yu. Wu Yu could not see its appearance, but could only feel the presence of the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar. His intelligence, scornful, domineering, and unruly. Perhaps its former owner was far superior to Wu Yu, so he didn't think highly of Wu Yu and fought against Wu Yu's sacrifice with a fierce attitude. Of course, the Zhufang demonic suppression pillar did not make itself very big to burst the heart fruit. It could understand that as a psychic weapon, the only thing it could do was to obey the control or the demon would oppose it. Take control and never take the initiative to destroy other things. Even the blood pillar of 100 ghosts can change to a height of 10 feet. Wu Yu knew that there were many formation diagrams on the Zhufang suppression demonic pillar. One of them is the complex transformation array. It is said that it is so small that it can be turned into 9 needles. It is so big that it may be more than 30 feet in length. It can easily destroy a mountain if held in hand. There are dozens of others, such as the Taishan formation that adds huge weight, the separate combination formation that merges into one, the 9 layers of fire formation that increases fire damage, etc., each of which has miraculous effects. However, there are 3 most important formations, one of which is the 9 Palaces Dragon formation, which has 9 golden coiled dragon pillars. This is the foundation of the 9 Directions demonic suppression pillar. There are 2 more, one is the 9 Directions suppression array, which is an attack array attached to the psychic weapon. To be precise, it is the suppression array in the attack array. At this moment, Wu Yu just pour the elixir into it and control the 9 Directions suppressing demonic pillar, and then you can use the 9 Directions suppressing demonic pillar to perform the 9 Directions suppressing demonic technique to ban the enemy. I beg Beidou to sing I song. This kind of banning method far exceeds that of Yin Mei. The last one is called the Zhufang boundary breaking array. This is a pure attack array. The principle is the same as the Zhufang demon suppressing array, but it is more powerful. It is the most famous killing move of the Zhufang demon suppressing pillar. It is said that the 9 Fang demon suppressing array Fang Poji's move was truly devastating. For Wu Yu, Zhufang boundary was tailor-made. It was unimaginable what kind of effect the violent technique combined with Zhufang breaking army, coupled with his indestructible body, would produce. It was precisely because of the power of the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar that Wu Yu was so eager to obtain this psychic weapon. He will never forget that this is a token of love given to him by Nangong Wei. For him, the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar has more meaning, so no matter what, he must suppress the spiritual wisdom of the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar and successfully perform the sacrifice. Immortal Ape Transformation. Wu Yu transformed into an immortal ape in the heart fruit, with a stronger physical body. He roughly stretched out his hand, grasped the 9 coiled dragon pillars in his hand, surrounded them with Dan Yuan and Dan Fire, and assisted in refining the magic formula. Zhifangjian demonic pillar launched a fierce attack. Nothing is difficult in the world, only those who are willing to do so. 10 days later, after Wu Yu's intense and unremitting efforts and brutal impact, Zhifangjian demon pillar's young intelligence finally bowed to him, even though it felt that Wu Yu's golden elixir was far less powerful than its former master, but Wu Yu's has a kind of shocking coercion and blood, and a temperament that makes its heart beat. It resisted in the end, just to express its excitement. Combine. After the sacrifice, the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar almost became his own arm, which can be manipulated freely and smoothly. Wu Yu removed the ritual artifacts such as the 100 ghost blood pillar, the divine eye golden sword, and the 7-color divine fire sword, and planned to sell them after leaving the heart sword prison, or maybe exchange them for some Yuan Jindan. He is really poor now. Even the fairy spirits on his body were basically consumed by refining elixirs. His current immersion time is still short, and even if his talent is extraordinary, the failure rate is still quite high. Even so, Wu Yu is still very interested. He is also planning to study and copy the magic circle after becoming a Huangji level disciple. Refining elixirs and setting up formations play a huge role in improving one's realm. Refining elixir requires the use of elixir fire. The better and more precise the elixir fire is controlled, the faster the elixir will be tempered. Under Wu Yu's control, the 9 demon-suppressing pillars began to fuse, and finally merged into one, turning into a stick with 9 golden dragons coiled around it, about as long as Wu Yu was tall, and more than an inch in diameter. Although it is not as ferocious as the blood pillar of 100 ghosts, its violence, power, and power of the magic circle are at least 10 times more powerful. It has to be said that this 9 directions demon suppression pillar can greatly enhance Wu Yu's combat effectiveness. This is the magic weapon that belongs to me, Wu Yu. After the Zhifang demonic suppression pillar became one, it looked very similar to the golden cudgel. The more similar it was, the more excited Wu Yu felt. I just don't know when I will be able to complete the cultivation of the great immortal arts, the indestructible body, and the 72 transformations. When will I be able to use this wishful golden cudgel? Thinking of the future, Wu Yu was full of expectations. It would be great if one day, one of the immortals above the heavenly palace could have his own place and live forever. Suppress demons and break boundaries. He continued to sit cross-legged on the ground, holding the 9-way demon-suppressing pillar in front of his chest, and carefully felt the power and changes of the demon-suppressing and boundary-breaking arrays. This is the first time that Wu Yu has encountered a situation where a Taoist spell can be directly performed on a psychic magic weapon. Even the Yin-Yang Dao sword is far from this level. Holding this 9 directions demon-suppressing pillar, the excitement in my heart is almost the same as when I was a child and got a toy. The 9 directions suppressing demonic formation is based on the 9 palaces dragon formation. The 9 directions suppressing demonic array is used as a variation. The 9 directions are used to release the elixir. The power of the 9 demonic suppressing pillars is used as the source to form a small magic circle to suppress the opponent. 9 directions breaking the boundary is when all the magic formations are activated at the same time. The demon suppressing pillar is integrated into one and released violently. It has the power to destroy the world. This is the limit of the 9 directions demon suppressing pillar. Thinking about these two formations, Wu Yu didn't know the passage of time. He was so mesmerized that he felt the power of Jufang demon suppressing and Jufang boundary breaking. Unfortunately, he couldn't release it yet. Wire, more than half a year has passed. I don't know how she is doing in Xuanhuan reincarnation cave. In half a year, she has grown up a lot. When we first met, she was still a little girl of 13 or 14. Now she is probably 16. In 2 or 3 years, she will be 18 or 19. A mortal woman will marry and have children at the age of 16. Wu Yu, the time has come, it's time to go. One day, when Wu Yu was still immersed in the world of Jufang Zhen demon pillar, the prison guard said something in his dream, which woke Wu Yu up. Yes. Staying in the Heart Sword prison for the past 6 months was actually quite comfortable. It just gave Wu Yu the most peaceful environment and allowed him to fully master the Jufang demonic suppression pillar. On the last day of the 10,000 Swords Immortal battle, I became the number 1 in the 10,000 Swords Immortal rankings, but the Galaxy Sword Master confiscated me as his disciple. Now half a year has passed. Do the disciples in the mortal sword domain still remember me? Are there any of the 4 great swordsmen in Qingtianshu Mountain who are waiting for me to show up and accept me as their disciple? Wu Yu's mood changed slightly when he thought about going out. What is the future path? Of course, we must earn merit first. We are too poor now. Without merit, even the speed of cultivation will be much slower. Wu Yu had already planned to earn merits after going out and exchange them for Yuan Jindan. When he walked out of the heart fruit, the shining light and harsh sound suddenly stung Wu Yu. It was difficult to adapt to it. He couldn't imagine that he had spent half a year in a world without any pictures or sounds. In fact, the surrounding mountains and snow were quiet and the light was soft. After Wu Yu got used to it for a while, he felt comfortable outside. I'm out. Once the Heart Sword prison is over, a new chapter begins. Wu Yu can't wait to venture into this vast divine continent. He landed his sword on the ground, bowed to the prison guard first, and then left quietly with his sword. Outside the Heart Sword prison, no one was waiting for him here. In this huge Xuanhuan, Nangongwei was the best to him. Even Shen Xingyu had to be busy with his own affairs and could only help Wu Yu occasionally, but that was also out of his optimism for Wu Yu. Half a year later, Xuanhuan Mountain was still covered with wind and snow, without any changes. He quietly returned to the Dozhan Sword Palace and War Immortal Palace while wielding the sword. On the way to wield the sword, he occasionally met a few other Fandan disciples, and they came to him. Wu Yu smiled, and after leaving, he whispered. Wu Yu seems to have come out of Heart Sword prison. I don't know what progress he has made. Zhao Xianxian and He Taiyu have both become Huangjian level disciples, and both have become disciples of the Tianqian Sword Master. They may even come down to trouble Wu Yu. It's a pity that Wu Yu didn't let the Sword Master of the Galaxy take a fancy to him. Now that he is alone, although there must be someone at the level of the Xuanhuan Sword Master who takes a fancy to him, before that, with Zhao Suingxian's personality, he will definitely bully him. Don't talk about it anymore. He is a genius and has nothing to do with ordinary disciples like me. Let's go to the demonic abyss to earn more achievements. Yes, my senior brother, in the demonic abyss last month, killed a beautiful 9 sky fox. It was the kind with the natal magical power. He has achieved a lot of achievements, which is really enviable. It's a pity that Wu Yu passed away in a flash and did not listen to these discussions. There was a kind of indifference in the Xuanhuan sword cultivator. Wu Yu felt this deeply, so he returned all the way. Everyone he met smiled a little and hurriedly leave and go about your own business. Let's go back to Kishan Peak to rest for a while, then go to the Flying Immortal Palace to see if there are any tasks that can be obtained. Wu Yu was a little resistant to the demonic abyss and was not willing to go there to earn merit. Besides, there were basically no opponents for Wu Yu there. After returning to Kishan Peak, he adjusted a little for a few days. He went to the Yibao Pavilion in the Dozhan Sword Palace to sell the unused psychic magic tools such as the 100 Ghost Blood Pillar and the Divine Eye Golden Sword, and exchanged them for more than 100 yuan jindan and some fairy spirits used for alchemy. After finishing organizing, he was ready to go. Just as he was about to set off, he found the Bailey Fihung lying on his wine pot, blocking the door of Kishan Peak. His hair was disheveled and his face was red. He looked like he was drunk and dreaming. When he saw Wu Yu, he grinned with yellow teeth. Said, "I heard that you have been released from the Heart Sword prison. Miss Shenzingyu asked me to say hello to you on her behalf. She is in retreat recently and will come to play with you when she has time. /U003 sem /U003e /U003 sem /U003 follow the official QQ public account, ID, love, read it early, and keep abreast of the latest information /U003c /m /U003e /U003c /m /U003e. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 259. Thank you very much, Palace Master. Please also thank Sister Shen for me. Palace Master Wu Yu still has a lot of good impressions of this dashing person. Bailey Fihung struggled to sit up, like a helpless man. He brushed aside the messy hair on his forehead, stared at Wu Yu for a while, and applauded, "Not bad, not bad, we have reached the 3rd level of the Golden Core Deo Realm Heavy, the speed is quite fast. With your ability, even the 5th level of the ordinary Jindan Deo Realm is no match for you. If Zhao Xianxian comes to trouble you, he will probably have to stop." Wu Yu didn't know Zhao Suangxian's situation, so he smiled and said, "That's natural. If he dares to provoke him, he will definitely be beaten to the ground." Now that his status in Shushan has been improved, Wu Yu's straightforwardness, decisiveness, and even arrogance have gradually emerged. Haha, he has a couple. They are of the same mind. You, a single man, should be careful. Bailey Fihung laughed. Wu Yu couldn't help but feel ashamed. He just didn't care if there was a beautiful and equally talented Taoist companion. They are all defeated. By the way, as the Palace Master, and you are a disciple without a master, I also have the responsibility to pay attention to it. What are your next plans? You have to understand, if Miss Shenzingyu asks about you, I can't even answer the question, and she's going to slap my ass. Bailey Fihung said with a grimace. His attitude was friendly, not like that of an elder, and it was indeed very comfortable. Wu Yu said bluntly, "I managed to get some merit last time, but now it's almost all gone. I'm thinking that I should earn more merit and get some resources, this will make progress faster." Bailey Fihung chuckled and said, "You are short of money, haha, I understand, I understand. We are all poor, I understand this feeling, in this case I will not waste your time, go ahead." Wu Yu was not a mother-in-law, and was about to leave. Bailey Fihung rolled his eyes, clapped his hands, and said, "Wu Yu, are you more interested in a way to earn merit more quickly? You know, the tasks you can receive from the Flying Immortal Palace in the Mortal Sword domain are not of high value, and it may take a lot of time to accept them, which is not cost-effective. The Palace Master seems to have good connections. As long as he does, Wu Yu will definitely want to go faster." Wu Yu stopped quickly. What Bailey Fihung said also made him a little distressed. He felt that the mission in the Mortal Sword domain was a bit easy. The performance is also a bit low. Bailey Fihung chuckled and said, "I have the most Fandan disciples who have been upgraded to Huangjian level disciples over the years. I have the most Dozhan Sword Palace. This time a friend came to me to reminisce about old times and mentioned that several of his junior brothers were going to perform a mission. there is still one person missing for the task. It seems that the reward for completing the task is 500 merit points per person, which is relatively high among the tasks for Huangjian level disciples. These junior brothers and friends are all from Dozhan Palace. And they are all young geniuses. They were among the top 100 people in the 10,000 Swords Immortal list a few years ago, and they all have famous teachers, including disciples of Tianjian level disciples. It just so happens that I can recommend you to them. 500 achievements. This is considered very high. It would take Wu Yu nearly a year to pick him up from Fixian Palace before he could earn so much, and this was assuming he was strong. He was immediately tempted. Can I participate in the mission of a Huangjian level disciple? Wu Yu asked. Bailey Fiheng chuckled and said, originally it wasn't possible, but for the sake of Miss Shen and I, it's no problem. Besides, you are also up to date and have a great reputation. I only need to tell my friend that it will definitely be okay. Question, how many days can you stay here and wait for my news? This Bailey Fiheng was really turbulent in his work, and he disappeared from Wu Yu's eyes after a while. What kind of mission is it that has such great achievements? Wu Yu was a little confused and didn't think much about it. In Kishan Peak, he began to consume Yuan Jindan to practice, and tempered about 50 Yuan Jindan. After the Jindan increased a bit, Bailey Fiheng came back with a smile on his face and said, it's done. 5 days later at noon, you go to the Hedao Hall of the Xiang Sword Palace to find the Palace Master Hedaozai. This person is at the 7th level of the Golden Core Realm and is the commander of this mission. If he completes the mission, he will get it. The highest merit is 1,000. The leader of the 7th level of Jindan Dao realm is stronger than Zhang Futu, which is enough to show the importance of this mission. How many people are there in total? How strong are the others? Wu Yu asked. Hedaozai is my friend's junior brother. I have never met him, so I don't know what his character is like. There are 4 others, all at the 6th level of the Golden Core realm, and they are all under 50 years old. Wu Yu thought about it for a while. He was only the 3rd level of Jindan Dao, and he seemed to be much weaker. He was not sure whether he would become a drag on the team. Including Wu Yu, there were 6 people in total. You can rest assured that based on your performance in the 10,000 Swords Fairy battle, they will take more care of you. Bailey Fiheng chuckled. In this case, Wu Yu didn't think too much, thanked Bailey Fiheng, and then set off for the Purple Sun Sword Palace. After all, the Xiang Sword Palace was a bit far, and it was at the northernmost point of the Mortal Sword territory. Even if you were to use the sword quickly, it would take some time. As for the details of the mission, I don't know much about it. After all, every mission will be kept confidential. After you go, Hedaozai will tell you. If you feel it is not appropriate at that time, you can withdraw. Bailey Fiheng finally explained. Of course, since Wu Yu has left, as long as he doesn't do anything against his will, he will basically not choose to quit. Bailey Fiheng was also kind-hearted and recommended him to join, so naturally he had to do this well and not ruin his reputation. Wu Yu still envied the yellow sword level disciples. They could practice in Qingtian Shushan Mountain, and there was no limit on the time they could leave Shushan. It was estimated that Wu Yu would need nearly 3 months to carry out the mission this time. If he exceeded the time limit, it should be no problem with the yellow sword level disciples. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. He flew on the sword, recalling the location of Xiang Sword Palace in Yindaolu. He was not in a hurry, so he came to the Hedao Palace of Xiang Sword Palace on the morning of the day of departure. There were hundreds of disciples in Hedao Palace, and their spirit and realm were obviously beyond Futuk Palace, but not as good as Zhanxian Palace. The leader, although young, also served as the master of the palace here. When Wu Yu came to Hedao Palace, a Jindan disciple of Hedao Palace found him, stepped forward to intercept him, and asked, "Who are you, and why are you here in Hedao Palace?" I am Wu Yu, and I came to see the master of Hedazai Palace. Wu Yu said. Meet my palace master? Wait, you just said, you are Wu Yu. The disciple was shocked, looking at Wu Yu, and even took a few steps back. Exactly. Please, please follow me. The disciple was frightened and stuttered. After all, this was the first on the 10,000 swordsman ranking. He trembled and brought Wu Yu to the Hedao Palace. In front of him was a palace built entirely of trees, antique and full of meaning. The palace master and several seniors are inside. Please come in. When Wu Yu came here, there were already many Fandan disciples around him, including one who was higher than Wu Yu in the 4th level of the Jindan Dao realm. Wu Yu could actually feel that there were several sharp cultivators in this antique palace. Sure enough, when he said Wu Yu wants to see you and walked in, he saw a total of 5 sword cultivators who looked very young and almost the same as him in the lobby of the palace, sitting on distinguished chairs, one of whom was at the top, and should be Hedazai. In addition, there were 2 young men on the left and 2 young women on the right. 5 people, 3 men and 2 women. When Wu Yu came in and scanned them in an instant, looking at the faces of this group of people, the other party was actually looking at him very carefully. Of course, among this group of people, they may have seen Wu Yu during the Wanjian Immortal battle. The most eye-catching one is Hedazai, who is sitting in the middle. He is the oldest, but he also looks like a young man. His black hair is mixed with a few white hairs. His expression looks a little vicissitudes. He is wearing a gray-black sword robe with dry black trees embroidered on it. His eyes are a little gray and silent. He seems to be not very interested in anything. When he looks at him, you can feel the indifference in his heart. He is the leader, so this mission is led by him. According to the rules of Xuanhuan, this kind of team mission can only be decided by the leader if more than 80% of the members of the team oppose the leader. Calculated in this way, Hedazai's authority in this trip is still very large. Looking at the 2 men on the left, they are indeed young heroes. After all, they were once in the top 100 of the 10,000 swordsman ranking. One of the men was dressed in black and had a cold and arrogant expression. He glanced at Wu Yu and seemed a little impatient. The other one was dressed in white with clouds embroidered on his clothes. He smiled slightly when he saw Wu Yu, which made him approachable. There were also 2 women. They were the best in both appearance and talent. Their figures were also very delicate. After all, their age was young for cultivators, but in the mortal world, they were almost the age of Wu Yu's parents. One of them was wearing an orange dress, dressed very charmingly, and her figure was more attractive. She always had a faint smile on her face, which was fascinating. When she saw Wu Yu, she also smiled delicately, which made people feel numb. Another woman was much colder and arrogant. She basically didn't look at Wu Yu directly. She played with a spiritual magic weapon in a scabbard in her hand. Her face was as cold as ice, and she seemed to find it a little boring. Wu Yu didn't think too much, walked forward, bowed slightly, and said, "Senior brothers and sisters. I am Wu Yu, I come to participate in this mission, please take care of me." The 5 of them were at ease. After Wu Yu finished speaking, no one responded. Just at this moment, Wu Yu slightly realized that they might not welcome him very much, but it was difficult to refuse for Bailey Fihung's face. The main thing was Hedazai, he was the leader. After a while, he waved his hand and said, "It's okay to arrive. Find a seat and sit down. Wait until I finish explaining the situation, and then we will set off." Having said that, Wu Yu looked around. There was nothing else in the palace except the 5 chairs where they were sitting. From this, it can be seen that Hedazai didn't think much of him, and he was too lazy to care, just stood aside. He wanted to know more about the details of this mission. Today there are 6 updates in total, and there are 4 in the afternoon and evening. backslash U003 sem backslash U003E backslash U003 sem backslash U003F. Follow the official QQ public account, ID, love, to read first and get the latest information at any time backslash U003C slash M backslash U003E backslash U003C slash M backslash U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 260. He Daizai seemed to have no intention of introducing his teammates to Wu Yu. I'm afraid that in his eyes, Wu Yu was able to join the team only through connections and some merit. Wu Yu didn't feel very comfortable getting along with these people for the first time, but for the 500 merits, he didn't mind. But among the 5 people, the young swordsman who was wearing a white sword robe with clouds embroidered on his clothes immediately introduced Wu Yu. He pointed at Hideazai and said, "You should know this senior brother Hideazai. I won't introduce too much. He is the master of the Hideo Palace, a figure at the 7th level of the Golden Core realm. He was still among the top 10 in the 10,000 Swords Immortal ranking. He is also my senior brother, and we learn from him. Tianji unlevel disciple, please introduce yourself." "My name is Ye Jingming. You can call me senior brother yet." Among the 5 people, only Ye Jingming seemed kind and approachable. Then he introduced another man and said, "He is Gu Hongming. He is very profound in sword cultivation. I am no match for him. He is also a genius. You can just call him senior brother Gu." Senior brother Gu has a somewhat direct temper, the words may not be pleasant to listen to, you just get used to it. As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Hongming sneered and said, "I'm really direct. This mission is very critical. What we want is an important helper, not a dragster who was arranged through connections. I don't even have the basic qualifications to be a Huangji unlevel disciple. I'm ashamed of myself." These words directly attacked Wu Yu. Sure enough, there were people who felt that Wu Yu was not qualified, and they were within the team. Of course, this is normal. At first glance, Gu Hongming seems to be a proud person, and the last thing you see is someone who relies on connections to do other things. Wu Yu remained calm and continued, "It seems that senior brother Gu has some doubts about my strength, but senior brother Gu may not know that in a real fight, senior brother Gu may not be my opponent." This was said in an understatement, but it was so arrogant that it shocked everyone. Gu Hongming was even more stunned. Then he seemed to feel that he had suffered a great shame and humiliation. "Gu Hongming, if you want to attack insiders and break the rules, I have to ask you out." "Humph. Don't touch my reverse scales, otherwise you will be unable to eat and walk around," Gu Hongming said angrily. It seems that he doesn't want to give up this opportunity. Wu Yu smiled faintly and didn't say much. However, his words made the 5 people present understand that he was not a character who wanted to be bullied. Although Na Hideazai was indifferent, he at least acted according to the rules, which was also a good thing. Ye Jingming smiled awkwardly and continued to introduce the other 2 women. Wu Yu learned that the charming woman in orange was named Su Cheng. Another woman with a frosty face is called Gong Yang Xiu. She is both a disciple of the heavenly sword level disciple and a once brilliant figure in the mortal sword domain. "Wu Yu, senior sister Su, I have seen your performance at Wanji and Fixian Mountain. It is indeed very powerful and shocked the world. However, senior brother Gu is your senior after all. He is older than you. You cannot offend him. After all, we are a team." Suqing said in a coquettish voice. "Senior sister Su is right. I was wrong just now. However, I do have to make it clear that since I am here, I will definitely contribute my strength and will not fish in troubled waters." "Just watch," Wu Yu said with a smile. Everyone pursed their lips and didn't say much, but it was obvious that Wu Yu knew that they still regarded themselves as relying on connections to gain experience. A Fandan disciple who was not even a Huangjian level disciple could not help them, but instead took 500 credits. These 5 people, headed by Hidayazai, Ye Jingming, Gu Hongming, Su Qing, and Gong Yangxiu, are all outstanding Huangjian level disciples. Their future prospects may be Tianjian level disciples, and they can also become Earth Sword level disciples. Having said this, Hidayazai waved his hand impatiently and said, "Okay, don't be so stubborn in front of me. Listen up." He coughed a few times, with a strong posture, and then said, "Our immortal sect has a vast territory, and there are countless sects, cities, and clans around it. This time there is a city in the north called King Malang City. There is news from the city, and the news comes from its city lord, who is a cultivator who has submitted to our immortal sect, so the news is absolutely true. One night half a month ago, it was said that a terrible demon came to Qingsang City and slaughtered more than 2,000 monks in Qingsang City overnight. Only a few survivors escaped. It is said that the dead people, their hearts were ripped out with extremely cruel methods, and they died with their eyes open. The scene was simply a hell on earth, so miserable. To this day, no one dares to enter Qingsang City anymore. This is mainly for Wu Yu, after all, they all know it." Wu Yu listened quietly. Even though he had some preparations, he frowned. He did not expect that such a massacre would happen in this land of God. Of course, this is actually due to his lack of experience. This kind of thing actually happens a lot. Hidayazai continued, "The Lord of Qingsang City reported to Xuanhuan, and Xuanhuan posted a mission, and I got it first. This time, we must catch the demonic mastermind and bring him to justice, so that we can sacrifice the souls of 2,000 of our comrades in the sky." The mission is easy to understand, but Wu Yu understands that the difficulty of the mission is to find out who this monster is, find him, and kill him. He had doubts in his mind, so he boldly asked, "I dare to ask brother He, among the survivors, some of them must have seen the monster. Is there any information about the monster? For example, what kind of monster is it? Is it famous, or has it never been seen before? Do you know him? Furthermore, what is the level of this demon's strength?" He felt the information was important. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Unexpectedly, Hidayazai stood up at this time and did not answer his words, but said, "If no one quits, then let's go." Wu Yu was left alone like this, but he really didn't take Wu Yu seriously. Wu Yu understood now that although Hidayazai didn't say he looked down on Wu Yu, he actually believed that Wu Yu was not qualified to participate. After all, this was a task he had won. It was only because of his senior brother's face that he let Wu Yu do it. Yu joins in. His senior brother is a Xuanjian level disciple and a close friend of Bailey Fi Hung. Therefore, he just wanted Wu Yu to follow. As for discussing the details, he was too lazy to speak. Hidayazai's reputation in Xuanhuan was that he was taciturn and didn't care about people or things. He was even less lazy to speak. "Little brat, our swordsmanship is very fast. If you fall behind, we won't wait for you." Gu Hongming followed Hidayazai out and sneered at Wu Yu when he passed by. Next to him, Su Qing said softly, "Senior brother Gu is really bad. Stop bullying other people's children. It's already remarkable that he can come together with us at his age." Gu Hongming sneered and said, "I know he is young. At this age, he can just feed himself at home. Why come here to join in the fun? I despise those who achieve nothing in vain." "How rude," Gongyang Shui said in disgust and followed Hidayazai. "Junior brother Wu, let's go together in the end." Only Ye Jingming stayed and said to Wu Yu. Wu Yu followed the team out. As soon as he left, Hidayazai and others were already wielding their swords. As expected, they didn't really want to wait for Wu Yu. Wu Yu naturally knew what they were thinking. Since he was ostracized, he didn't bother to get close to them. This time, the goal was to assist in completing the task. After all, he was not the main force. He followed closely behind Ye Jingming, also flying with his sword. The yin and yang Dao swords combined together to break through the clouds and mist, and set off at full speed, flying with his sword into the sky. The golden elixir of his high-grade heavenly magic has the effect of converging yin and yang, and the elixir recovers very quickly after it is consumed. Therefore, although Wu Yu is slightly inferior to them in terms of speed, he even surpasses He Daozai in terms of endurance. They wanted to get rid of Wu Yu, but when they looked back, they saw that Wu Yu was right behind Ye Jingming. Even if they speeded up, they could only make Wu Yu disappear for a while. The five of them looked at each other, a little surprised. It seems I can't get rid of this tart. The demons are so dangerous that even a mere Fandan disciple dares to join us in slaying them. I can only say that if you lose your life then, I, Gu Hongming, will not be responsible, Gu Hongming snorted coldly. I think this little brother is quite cute. Stop bullying him. What if he cries? Suqing covered her mouth and chuckled. Not long after, a group of people arrived at the Shushan Sword Gate, which is the exit of Xiang Sword Palace. Huangjian level disciples only need to register briefly when traveling. Because Wu Yu is a Fandan disciple, He Daozai still needs to explain the situation. The gatekeeper was very familiar with Wu Yu and quickly let him go. This is the first time Wu Yu has left here since he came to Shushan and headed towards the endless divine continent without the protection of Shushan. Last time the direction was south, this time it's north. In the depths of his far north, there is an area covered by black miasma all day long. The miasma and poisonous gas there form an endless rolling black cloud, called the Endless Demon Sea. The scope of the Endless Demon Sea is larger than that of the Mortal Sword domain. It is much larger. It is said that the strongest monsters in Shenzhou gather there. It is the base camp of monsters and a forbidden place for righteous cultivators. Of course, the monsters prefer to call it Yunmengai. However, for Wu Yu, he felt that the Endless Sea of Demons was more appropriate. It is said that the closer you get to the Endless Demon Sea, the more demons you will encounter. There are many areas where demons and ascetics coexist, and life and death disputes often occur. However, judging from the map, this small city called Qingmulk City is still very close to Shushan Mountain and far away from the endless demonic sea. Which demon is so bold as to create such a heartbreaking and murderous thing in the sheltered territory of Shushan Mountain? A bloody case. More than 2,000 monks were killed in one night. What kind of power is this monster? Wu Yu was still a little unhappy. He Daozai only thought that he was here to gain merit and was not even willing to tell Wu Yu the details, which made Wu Yu confused now. After leaving Shushan, everyone wielded their swords at high speeds. Their Danyuan was so powerful that Wu Yu had to maintain full speed to catch up with them in the vast white clouds. The front is extremely magnificent. /U003 cent /U003e /U003c /sente /U003e